After eliminating the majority of the locust swarm, Lloyd leaves the clean-up to the White Cavalry and the Orcs. Lloyd, having earned the praise, round 1 pick by Terminix Pest Control, for his heroic efforts during the locust swarm crisis, reflects on the newfound abilities and responsibilities bestowed upon him. The praise grants him respect and admiration from the residents of Frontera Barony and Lacona Viscounty, and even instills instinctive fear in all insect-type monsters. Lloyd, unfazed by the honor, acknowledges the practical benefits of the praise, especially in dealing with future insect threats. Struggling to accept the notion of White Cavalry handling shovels instead of engaging in battle, Valelardi Blanc, commander of the White Cavalry, confronted Lloyd, demanding an explanation. Blanc questioned Lloyd's motives and authority. Lloyd proposed a wager, to demonstrate the effectiveness of his construction training against Blanc's swordsmanship. Blanc accepted the challenge, dismissing the idea that shoveling could compare to his prowess. Lloyd, undeterred, demonstrated the power of his shoveling technique, showcasing its explosive force and illuminating the night sky. Blanc, left speechless and impressed, realized the practicality of the training and accepted the integration of White Cavalry into the construction unit. The unexpected turn of events marked the beginning of a new chapter, as the White Knights prepared to face both construction and monstrous threats in the days to come. A deep tremor reverberates through the eastern mountain range, signaling the approach of a formidable force. Blanc observes the unusual quake with keen interest. Recalling a conversation with Lloyd about an imminent mastodon attack, Blanc begins to connect the dots. As the mastodon herd emerges from the mountains, Blanc formulates a battle plan, intending to engage them head-on. However, unexpected orders from Lloyd disrupt Blanc's strategy. The White Cavalry are directed to leave their positions and move to the southern Maritz frontier. Confused and frustrated, Blanc receives further instructions from a messenger, revealing Lloyd's unconventional plan. Instead of a direct charge, the White Cavalry are to wait for a signal from Lloyd, who is stationed on a rock to the east. As the mastodons approach, Blanc questions the effectiveness of the new plan. The mastodon herd, confronted with an engraved Megalania image on the ground, hesitates and changes direction. The Megalania is the natural enemy of the mastodons. Lloyd's plan to create confusion and fear among the mastodons proves successful. Blanc, realizing the significance of the trench-like passage formed during their week of construction, shudders at the revelation of Lloyd's ingenious trap, water attack. With a sense of foreboding, Blanc witnesses the unfolding events, acknowledging Lloyd's strategic brilliance. The mastodon herd, driven by fear and confusion, unwittingly falls into the trap laid out for them, as the water attack commences from the south. The ingenious trap, where the carved image of Megalania and a strategically designed water channel led the herd away with minimal casualties. Blanc acknowledges that every time there's a battle, the White Cavalry would always have some casualties. Blanc, having seen Lloyd's genius, asks him to let them stay to help in the barony. Acknowledging the upcoming challenges, Lloyd unveils a daring plan to awaken King Storma, a powerful creature in Lake Kapua of the eastern mountain range, to serve as a biological barrier against monster attacks. The Baron and others express disbelief, prompting Lloyd to explain the plan to have King Storma roar twice a day, scaring off monsters. He calls his plan, Operation Guard Dog. Lloyd recounts the history of Lake Kapua's creation by King Storma, emphasizing the benefits of his territorial behavior. The plan involves periodically damaging the lake's perimeter to keep King Storma active. Lloyd acknowledges the risks, highlighting the potential for floods if the dam is not carefully managed. The group grapples with the ethical implications, but Lloyd insists on the necessity and outlines the involvement of Javier, Blanc, and the White Cavalry in the operation. As the details unfold, everyone realizes the meticulous calculations and strategic planning behind Lloyd's seemingly audacious plan. Using his survey skill, Lloyd examines the dam structure and initiates a virtual simulation with his design skill. Immersed in concentration, Lloyd manipulates the virtual space, planning the precise demolition of a small part of the dam. Javier observes Lloyd, curious about the unique focus and abilities he exhibits. 3 days later, Lloyd addresses the White Cavalry, explaining their role in the controlled demolition. With soaring morale, they begin the excavation under Lloyd's guidance. Finally, Javier, armed with explosives, successfully triggers a calculated collapse in the dam. The nest at the center of the lake, resembling an island, starts to stir, and King Storma awakens with a powerful roar, signaling the beginning of his active phase. Lloyd watches with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as the colossal creature stirs from its centuries-long slumber. A colossal roar shakes the lakeside, puzzling Lloyd and the White Cavalry. Lloyd recognizes the roar as if it were translated, just like how he communicates with his fantasy creatures, understanding King Storma's frustration about the dam. Below the nest, King Storma's roar intensifies, revealing a massive beaver-like creature. Lloyd's plan to induce King Storma to fix the dam seems successful, but the creature's intelligence surprises him. Realizing the need for a tailored response, Lloyd instructs Javier to play the villain and draw King Storma's attention. Javier complies, using a powerful technique and drawing the creature's fury. Lloyd silently approaches King Storma, armed with a blue sunflower seed. He contemplates the nature of the fantasy creature and speculates that feeding King Storma the blue sunflower seed might shrink him. He approaches underwater while Javier keeps distracting King Storma with powerful blasts and noisy monologues. As Lloyd reaches King Storma, Javier's dramatic shouts attract the creature's attention. Javier tries to mimic the creature's sound in an attempt to communicate. Little did Javier know that he was spouting nonsense in the creature's language. In a coordinated effort, Lloyd climbs King Storma and, with a swift move, feeds him the blue sunflower seed, causing King Storma to shrink. Lloyd successfully captures King Storma, who struggles but is caught in his grasp. The creature is bewildered, and Lloyd attempts to communicate, realizing that King Storma may not be as easily tamed as other fantasy creatures. To ease King Storma's resistance, Lloyd introduces Podong, Bangle, and Hamang. As the fantasy creatures emerge from Lloyd's pocket, King Storma's fierce demeanor softens, especially when he locks eyes with Bangle, experiencing a magical first love. Bebyung, previously known as King Storma, agrees to join Lloyd and his group. However, Lloyd becomes suspicious of Bebyung's sudden change in attitude and questions him. Bebyung, sitting calmly, seems to be hiding something. Lloyd observes Bebyung closely and notices subtle details, such as the angle of his stance and his glances at Bangle. Lloyd jokingly suggests that Bebyung might have a crush on someone, specifically Bangle. Bebyung's reaction confirms Lloyd's suspicions. Despite Bebyung's initial hostility, it appears that his feelings for Bangle have softened his demeanor. Later, Lloyd uses this opportunity to convince Bebyung to assist in protecting the territory from the ongoing monster attacks. Bebyung agrees, especially when Lloyd hints at the positive impact it might have on Bangle. A message from the orcs arrives asking for help. The orc tribe is currently fighting against a herd of Megalania. Lloyd sees this opportunity to counterattack and test Bebyung's power. With everyone on board, Bebyung, enlarged with a red sunflower seed, takes them on a journey towards the orc tribe's territory. Along the way, they encounter the territorial army's reconnaissance team returning from a mission. Lloyd learns that the orc tribe is engaged in a fierce battle against the monsters. Concerned about the situation, Lloyd decides to use Bebyung to create an ecological barrier and strengthen the orc tribe's defenses. Bebyung enthusiastically agrees to help, and Lloyd instructs him to scare away the monsters by showcasing his power. Bebyung charges towards the battle, ready to impress Bangle with his actions. As he confronts a fearsome Megalania, Bebyung delivers a powerful punch, determined to protect his beloved and make an impact on the ongoing struggle against the monsters. The battle reaches its climax as Bebyung delivers a finishing blow, lifting the Megalania with his fangs and sending it flying for hundreds of meters. Lloyd, observing the scene, notes Bebyung's clumsiness but finds it endearing. He requests Bangle to wave at Bebyung to boost his confidence, and Bangle obliges, creating a heartwarming moment. After the battle, Lloyd approaches Chief Akush, the leader of the Sand and Steel tribe, and proposes a plan to relocate their base to the eastern mountains for strategic advantages and better resources. The Orc tribe enthusiastically agrees to the idea, and the Sand and Steel Orc tribe embarks on a sudden relocation. A while ago, Asfahan, a kingdom bordering the east side of Magentano, burned down the Reed Field region for a certain strategic purpose. A huge domino-like movement of monsters followed. Among those monsters, there were some from barbaric tribe societies that possessed intelligence. They were the ones to see it happen. 3 apex predators, of the Megalania species, were rolled up like wasted paper and sent flying away. Those sentient monsters began to spread what they saw to the other monsters. Word spread that there's a legendary beast the size of a mountain at the end of the west side. It was so big that it could touch the clouds, and its tail was the epitome of God's wrath, as though a wish could cause a typhoon. Its black round eyes looked like they witnessed nothing but an abyss, and its 2 fangs were capable of eating every living thing in the world. And the eyes of the demon that was controlling the beast looked like hell in itself. In the kingdom of Asfahan, Samarkand, the Sultan, received the news that the orcs of the Sand and Steel tribe had relocated to Magentano's territory. They had already anticipated this outcome when devising the monster domino. Everything is happening all according to plan, that's what the Sultan thinks. But he receives another news, and a bad news at that. The monsters that were driven towards the Magentano kingdom are coming back towards Asfahan, attacking them. The monsters seem to be scared of something from the west. The Sultan orders his subordinates to prepare for battle to defend their territory. It seems that their plan using the monster domino effect has backfired. With the physical threats now dealt with, Lloyd reflects on the successful operations and anticipates the final task of paying off remaining debts with the construction fees received from the royal capital. He carries on with his day, summoning the debt collectors to settle the remaining debt. The process is straightforward, but Lloyd feels a sense of emptiness after paying off all his debts. He receives the praise, number 1 at escaping a mountain of debt, and gains financial benefits in the Cremona region. Despite the positive outcomes, Lloyd feels an unexplainable unease. Lloyd returns to the mansion, goes through his routine, and ends the day pondering on his complex emotions. In a vulnerable moment, he remembers his father from Earth and how he wasn't able to help him with his debt problems. Lloyd wishes to share his achievements with his father. Lloyd sheds tears for the first time since coming to this world, expressing a mix of emotions and a sense of accomplishment. A few days later, the townspeople celebrate the settlement of debt and the victory against the monsters. Suddenly, a group of ragged people arrives in the territory, pleading for help. They claim to be residents of Certino barony. The leader, Nicholas, explains their situation, revealing that monsters attacked their village, and their lord disappeared. Realizing that this might be just the beginning of an influx of refugees, Lloyd heads to the lord's office to plan for a potential crisis. Lloyd predicts more refugees, and as they discuss the limited options for their relocation, the Baron is compelled to trust his son's advice. Lloyd suggests preparing for the refugees with food and shelter, proposing the use of locusts as a food source. The Baron is hesitant, but Lloyd assures him of the nutritional value and practicality. As preparations begin, the Baroness leads the women in processing locust meat, using a legendary cookbook for recipes. Meanwhile, Lloyd tirelessly surveys the territory for a solution to the housing issue. After some time, with refugees pouring in, the housing problems become imminent. Lloyd reveals his plan to build temporary tents and introduces the concept of apartments as a long-term solution. Apartments, a familiar housing type in South Korea, trigger memories for Lloyd. He reminisces about his childhood living in a standard South Korean apartment. Now, proposing the concept of apartments to the Baron for efficient refugee accommodation, Lloyd explains the advantages, drawing inspiration from ancient Earth civilizations. He emphasizes the benefits of convenient administration, land area savings, economic development, standardized construction, and improved territorial defense. As Lloyd continues on designing the plans for the apartment, he realizes that they won't have enough funds to accommodate a lot of refugees. Lloyd decided to visit Viscount Lacona. In the corridor, he sees Diego, the one that was bullying Julian in the Magenta Academy. Diego is scared when he sees Lloyd, remembering the traumatic experience he suffered in the hands of Lloyd. Lloyd then had a discussion with Viscount Lacona regarding the water tax. He plans on increasing the amount being paid. Viscount Lacona shows Lloyd the contract, which states that the amount is fixed and can't be changed. But to Viscount Lacona's surprise, Lloyd takes out a magnifying glass. There is a small clause in the contract that can only be seen through the magnifying glass, stating that the price of the water can be changed depending on the supplier. The negotiation continued, and in the end, they agreed on a 4 times increase. Viscount Lacona felt defeated and had no choice but to comply. In the courtyard of the royal palace of Magenta, an officer commands 50 crossbowmen to fire deadly bolts at Queen Alicia. With swift and precise swordplay, she effortlessly deflects all 50 bolts, displaying her mastery as a swordmaster. Meanwhile, she reflects on her training, the recent chaotic events in the East, and the mysterious brainwashing of Sir Kyle. A messenger interrupted Queen Alicia's thoughts, telling her that an envoy from Frontera barony had arrived. Lloyd's plan to secure funds for the apartments caused Javier to be sent to the royal palace as an envoy. His extraordinary weapon? Throwing a tantrum, crying, and whining to appeal for resources and support. Javier reads a letter to Queen Alicia detailing the situation in the barony. A lot of residents from all over the eastern side of Cremona region came to the barony to take refuge. In the letter, Lloyd also reveals his plan to build the apartment complex to accommodate all the refugees. His plan is to build them a permanent shelter and help them settle and earn a living for themselves. But there's just one problem: the lack of money. Lloyd appeals to Queen Alicia's sympathy towards the common people. The letter is full of bootlicking compliments and shamelessness that Javier is almost ashamed to read out loud. Queen Alicia interrupts Javier and says that she needs the approval of the council. Javier takes out a plan for the building, expressing that the apartment building can also serve as a fortress. If there will be an invasion in the future, it can be used to defend the Eastern Territory. Queen Alicia, having weighed down the pros and cons, comes to a realization that there's more benefit to the plan. She agrees to Lloyd's request and tells Javier to wait for the funds. Lloyd also requested for the dwarf craftsman Wells Corgatus. The royal dwarf commander, Wells Corgatus, travels to the rural Frontera barony with a group of dwarf craftsmen to assist in building a new city. Lloyd welcomes them, presenting blueprints for a cement mixer and pump. Corgatus, skeptical at first, eventually understands the necessity for these complex construction tools. The dwarf craftsmen, under Corgatus's guidance, successfully build a massive 20-meter wheel-powered cement mixer within 10 days. Podong, the hamster, enjoys running on the wheel, demonstrating its functionality. Lloyd is impressed, expressing excitement for the upcoming construction of the apartment complex. The foundation work begins on a spacious plot of land north of the Baron's manor. Lloyd deems it suitable due to its central location, ample space, and excellent soil quality. Lloyd instructs Javier to lay the foundation by drilling holes for cement columns. Javier, reluctant but resigned, starts the laborious task. The construction progresses smoothly, and the foundation is laid for the first apartment building. The process involves drilling holes, pouring fresh cement, and creating a concrete pedestal. Lloyd introduces a fun game of rebar bending to engage orc miners in building muscular strength. The construction involves meticulous calculations and the use of orcs' physical strength for rebar assembly. The construction gains momentum with the arrival of support materials sent by the Queen. Lloyd summons Bebyung to act as a tower crane for transporting materials. The first building reaches 8 stories within a month, showcasing the rapid progress of the Honey apartment complex in the Frontera territory. The heating project is completed around the end of the year, and Lloyd tests the system's performance. However, he discovers a challenge: uneven heating on different floors due to the pipe's length and insulation limitations. To address the insulation issue, Lloyd searches for a material that surpasses existing ones in performance, affordability, and availability. After days of contemplation, he turns to his notes on the novel, Night of Blood and Iron, finding information about the Everglow Forest, Elantia Sap, and Hot Dragon's Breath. In the novel, while Javier was fighting a dragon, he got hit by Dragon's Breath but was unharmed. Javier was wearing armor made from the hardened sap of the Elantia tree. Later, Lloyd comes up with an apparently impossible task: obtaining Elantia tree sap from the Everglow Forest, where elves reside. Javier initially refuses to believe in the feasibility of the plan. However, Lloyd insists on going to the forest and stealing the sap, leading to Javier reluctantly agreeing to cooperate. Next up is Lloyd and Javier's journey to Everglow Forest, the territory of the elves.